Good afternoon. This is Rabbi Sachs from the coming to you from the Chai Center, Dix Hills, New York, and welcome to the Chai Academy. Chai Academy, of course, is our um, classes that we offer online. Started because of COVID, and it's continuing, I guess, because of COVID, but probably beyond. And we discuss different things every day, and each class is self-encapsulated. So we have been discussing Genesis. We've gone through a number of classes, first day of creation, second day, etc. And it was yesterday that we discussed day 6. And yesterday, what we spoke about was the creation of the animals. Good afternoon, Eileen. So the creation of the animals, and we went through some interesting tidbits and facts about animals and what the human relationship is with the animal, and the very last thing to be created, and that there's a caveat to that, which we'll probably talk about tomorrow. The very last thing to be created was humankind. Humankind. So right after the animals, it says Vayomer, and God said, "Let us make man." Now, does it mean man, or does it mean mankind? So for all practical purposes, we're going to explain that it means mankind, not necessarily man, and as you see how we progress. So let us make man. So the Hebrew word for that the Torah uses is Adam. Adam. But we pronounce it a little bit different. Adam. Now, there's different words for man, by the way. There's Ish, there's Enosh, there's Gever, there's 4 Hebrew words for man, and just like the Eskimos have a bunch of words for snow. But here it uses Adam. So one of the reasons it's called Adam is because Adamah, ground. Right? Man is made from the ground. That, as we say, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. Most of man is made out of earth, and that is we're earthy creatures, and that's how we're made. So Adam, as it's close to, as that's our makeup. Main makeup, anyway. Earth. Another reason why we're called Adam, and they're not mutually exclusive, is Adama le'elyon. We are very similar to the above. That our creation is just the creation of mankind is the closest thing to godliness. Right? So animals are animals, human beings are godly. Not everything's godly to an extent, but human beings are creme de la creme of creation, if we act accordingly, by the way. And we are Adama le'elyon, we're compared to the above. So that's why it was called, when it says let us make Adam, let's not call it let us make Adam the person, but rather Adam the human. So we begin. It says, let us make man. What in heaven's name does that mean? Who's us? And God said, let there be light. And God said, let there be this, and let there be that, and let the animals, Yishitsu, let them swarm. And God said, let there be the celestial, the celestial hosts in the sky. What is let us make man? Very, very troubling thing. And Rashi talks about it right away. Rashi says is that God was willing to raise eyebrows to teach us a lesson, even though it's seemingly let us make man is, oh my goodness, is there more than one God? Oh my goodness, is there a dualism? But Rashi says no. What God was doing, God was talking to the angels. He was saying to the angels, I'm about to do something, but I don't want you to resent. Right now, for the first few days of creation, right? You and I have been pretty tight. The angels and God have been pretty tight. He says, I'm about to introduce an earthly angel. I'm about to introduce a perceived competitor. So I don't want to do it without telling you about it. Hey, Susan, shalom. So I don't want to make this earthly man, this earthly Adam, I don't want to make it without first consulting you, because I don't want there to be any issues later. So Rashi says God was humble and God was smart. He didn't want the angels to resent human beings, so he said, let us make man. So even though the term us is very tricky, he says God will forgive the trickiness, and he has belief in the Jewish people that they'll believe in one God, but still to teach us a lesson of let us make man. So God consulted the angels, and he said, look, this is what I want to do. I want to make my spirit dwell on earth, and I'm going to give them the Torah. And by the way, there's a whole Talmud and there's a whole midrash on the angels conversing with God, and the angels upset that the human beings got the Torah, not them, etc. But this is outside another class. We'll do that in another class. So that's one explanation that God talked to the angels. The other explanation, and once again they don't have to be mutually exclusive, is that God spoke to the attributes. God spoke to the attributes of patience, and he goes, yeah, you're in. The attribute of kindness, the attribute of discipline, the attribute of stamina, the attribute of humility, splendor, the attribute of regalness, the attribute of statesman, and took all these attributes, the cogitation, the ability to cogitate and meditate and think, etc. And he says, all of you, let us come. Let's all together make man. Right. So, an animal, yes, you can say that this animal's kind and that animal's kind, but it's not with forethought. It's and some animals are very smart, but it's more based on instinct. With the human being, when God took these attributes, all these attributes have to work in tandem. And by the way, when they don't, when an attribute is either too dominant or weak, that is generally when therapy comes in. Not happy. You're off kilter. So God took these attributes and he said, come, attributes, let us make man. Another explanation by the Ibn Ezra, he says God was talking to us. He was talking to future people. Come, let us make man. See, there's a philosophy out there that we were not given a choice, right? We were brought down in this world. We weren't given a choice. We were just dumped here, and we turned to God and said, well, we don't want to be here. Right? We just don't want to be here. So, and that philosophy is alive and well. That we don't get asked before we're born, and we don't get asked before we die. We're just here, and while we're here, we have to fulfill a mission. But based on the Ibn Ezra, it seems like that God got the human beings' souls to concur that eventually they will come into this world, and it will not be via coercion, it will not be against their will, but rather it will be something that the human being agreed to at some point. Let us make man. And it continues, let us make man, but B'Tselem Elokim, in the image of God. Now, God doesn't have eyes, God doesn't have a nose, and God definitely doesn't have tonsils, and he definitely has never had tonsillitis, right? God does not have wax in his ear, and God doesn't have postnasal drip. So, what does it mean in our likeness? So, it is explained that the human being is the only animal, the only creation, I should say, that thinks or has the ability to think before they act. And they can decide whether yes or no. I agree with this, I don't agree with this. I like this, I don't like this. I'm going to do this, I'm not going to do that. Right? The human being is while it seemed like a dog or a cat can ignore you, but only the human being has this forethought and this weighing of a decision. Only the human being has free will. We've discussed this before, that nothing else in this world, nothing else in this universe has free will. Right? Angels don't have free will. Plants don't have free will. Rain doesn't have free will. Animals don't have free will. They have instinct, once again, and they can be smart and do this, that, the other, but they don't have free will. Right? And by the way, Maimonides actually, someone told him, I can prove to you that an animal does have free will, and there's a whole story about Maimonides proved to him that animals don't have free will. They don't have free will. They have instincts, and they have good instincts, and some of them, dogs have incredible instincts, man's best friend. They know who's a friend and who's not. But don't confuse that with free will. So when he says, let us create man in his image, it's the man that's able to decide for him or herself what it is they'll do. Only a human being can trespass God's will. Only a human being can basically step over somebody willingly, knowingly it's not the right thing to do. Only a human being. So a human being has, and we discussed this in the Maimonides class, that only a human being has the ability when they're at a delta to decide for themselves, regardless of what God's knowledge is. God knows what they're going to do, but when a human being is at the crossroads, they absolutely know that they can do what it is they want to do. Right? And once again, it is only a moral decision. It's not whether you like chocolate ice cream or vanilla ice cream. Right? So that's what it means when it says B'Tselem Elokim, with a special force that we're able to think and cogitate and meditate and contemplate before we do it. And we can also do something against our thoughts. That's the other part of it. Is we can say, yes, it makes sense to me, but when push comes to shove, you go the other way. Once again, but I just want to point out, if you have questions, comments, it actually enhances the class. It's nothing to do with me. It does enhance the class. Now, moving on. So it says that B'Tselem Elokim, in the image of God, Zachar u'Nekeva bara otam, male and female, he created them. What it seems like, and this is from the commentaries, and this is from our Blaze, is that God first created a hermaphrodite. He created a somebody that had both sexes. He created a male and a female all in one body. The Talmud talks about that he created them back to back, that they basically had like the conjoined twins, Siamese twins, where one was looking this way, and let's say the male was looking this way, and the female was looking that way. We could take it literally that it was back to back, or we can say that they were They had each other's back, so to speak. They were. So it seems like this is a prevalent commentaries. Most of the commentaries is God created them. He created male and female together. Now you have to remember this is Genesis 1 that we're studying. When we get to Genesis 2, we will talk about the separation from male to female. That's where it really fleshes it out. But right now we're at Genesis 1, and and God created hermaphrodite. God created this male and female body, right? And by the way, hermaphrodites exist today. They have they're androgynous. They have both sexes, and they sometimes they're able to perform a surgery and remove the male genitalia and just be left with the female genitalia, because that seems to be prominent. But there is. So it seems like that Adam and Eve, at that time it was just called Adam, but it was male and female, because Adam for mankind, not as a name. Once again, that's how we started. So there's some incredible lessons to be learned out of this creation that God created. The first thing is that there's no such thing as male supremacy. There's no such thing. It's not that male came first, and then came the female. But rather, there's equality. Equal doesn't mean same, by the way. Right? But there's equality. They each have their distinct roles, etc. But at first, God put it together in one body. Right? But the lesson is obvious. So it's not to say that there is more, that men have more of a dominant position in Judaism than females. Look, and he took Eve from Adam's side. We'll get to that. We'll discuss that. But it's very clear from the Torah that man and woman were created together. Together. Then he separated them, and we've been trying to get together, which is illogical ever since. But we'll talk about that. Man and woman are equal. We have equal status. And if you see something in Judaism where it seems like the woman does not have to do it, it's not because there's a poo-pooing of the woman, but rather there's an explanation. And there are a number of books you can read. Jewish Women and Jewish Law is a great book where it really explains. It's a great book by Moshe Meisels, I believe his name is. But there's clearly equality. And once again, if a woman doesn't have to do something, it's because it makes sense or it benefits the woman. So when I see a woman take upon themselves a traditional male mitzvah, I say to myself, this woman doesn't understand and is ignorant of her role, her contribution, and therefore she has to come onto the male mitzvah. And likewise, if I see a male doing a female mitzvah, it's exactly the flip side of the same coin. So that's the first thing it teaches: equality. God created men and women. Now, why do we say God blessed be He? Right? It seems like in the Torah, it is more of a male-dominated, right? Blessed be He. So I think the basic answer is that when we think about the male, especially in the sexual context, we think about the male giving and the female receiving. So God gives us life. God gave us this world. God gave us donkeys and monkeys and wheat. And so we say, blessed be He. But God transcends He. God created male and created female. So we're not going to say that God is a He. We only use it in the context of of giving, that God is the giver. In fact, the prophets, a lot of the prophets, are replete where they refer to God as the mother that embraces her child. So the prophets talk a lot about God and the feminine, and God is both. If you think about it, if you really think about it, a man has testosterone, but he must have other hormones as well. He's got to have some estrogen. A woman, she can't have just estrogen. She must have testosterone. Must have, right? It is not it's and practically, scientifically, that is the case. That is the case. As someone writes there, I don't think we should overthink the pronouns. There's a story about a joke about a teacher who was teaching English and grammar, and she turned to a kid who she knows didn't know a thing, and she turned to him and said, "Hey, you, Jackson, give me 2 pronouns." So he looks up and goes, "Who, me?" And she goes, "Correct. Okay, Stacy." And she went to the next one. So it's a woman has to have both. A man has to have both. That's how God created. God created. Now later on came distinct roles, and a man looks like this, and a woman looks like this, and there's the fairer sex, and there's this sex and that sex. It could all be explained, but a woman is not inferior to the man. And that's Judaism's viewpoint, by the way. Judaism's viewpoint is they're not inferior, and I think women, have pierced glass ceilings in Judaism way before it was discussed in American society. Way before the women in the suffrage movement and they got to vote. Devorah, the prophetess, right? Miriam, Moses' sister, she used to hold court. So it's not what you think. So the male and so men and women are equal. Right now they were created together. Right? Right, Lenny, that's correct. Thank you for telling us. It's the adrenal cortex, just above the kidney. And every once in a while, this woman, the estrogen gives me a zets, and I get a kidney stone. So it's very clear. It's very clear. Called a Meir, very very good. So so we'll discuss is that God saw that it's not good. It's not good for a man and woman to be in the same body. It's not good. It's not good for a number of reasons, as we'll discuss tomorrow or the next day. It's because then we're going to get into Genesis 2 at some point, but this is Genesis 1. We're still in Genesis 1. So it's for now, God created man and woman with all their DNA and with all their all their parts and bits into one person, Adam and Chava, and God blessed them, and He blessed them, and he and that they should be fruitful and multiply, etc. And then God said that was the end of the 6th day. When the human being was the only creation that God didn't say specifically that it was good. He says God looked back at His creations, and He saw it was good on the 6th day. But by the animals, it says God said it was good. By the human beings, God doesn't say it was good, and He says, and God looked at the creations, it was good. The reason why God didn't say it was good by human beings is because it's up to us, because of our free will, because we created in the Tzelem Elokim, in the likeness of God, is that we have things to complete. We have our mission. And if we fulfill our mission, it's good. If we don't fulfill our mission, it's not good. And we each have different missions. There's no redundancy. So therefore, God couldn't say, he couldn't say, and it was good, because it's not necessarily good. Right? There are plenty of human beings who have not lived out their life good. Right? There's plenty of people who are opposite of good. So therefore, it does not say tov ma'od. Right? It does not say tov or tov ma'od, that it was good by the human being. Because when God created the world, he created a world that needs us to perfect it. So essentially, God created a perfectly, because it's God, imperfect world. A perfect, imperfect world. And it's up to us. It's up to us. Then, we got the run with it. I've given you all the tools. I've given you every creation under the sun to allow you to live and to allow you to thrive. And right now, my friends, it's up to you, says God. And we can blow it because we have free will. We can conquer it because we have free will. And God is always rooting for us to conquer it, clearly. God wants us to, but he can't interfere in our free will. Once again, if every time we did a good deed, we get $100 in our account, and every time we do a bad deed, that $100 is taken out, there's no free will. So he keeps us guessing. There is rewards and there are punishments, but it's not going to be an tit for tat. It's not going to be instant reward, instant gratification, instant punishment. And we have to do what we have to do. How do we do it? How do we do what we have to do to perfect creation? That is why we have the Torah. The Torah is our guidebook. There's books out there, what to expect when you're expecting, what to expect the first year, what to expect, this, that, and the other. The Torah is that type of idea. What is it that God considers good? And there's lessons for everyone, not just Jews, by the way. Right? It's the blueprint. If you look at the Midrash, it says that the Torah was there before creation. It wasn't given till the year 2448, but the Torah has always been there. So, so the Torah is the blueprint, and the Torah is a manual for life. So you want to know what to do? We need to study the Torah. And this is kind of what we're doing now. Any questions before we hang up? If you do, rabbi at thechaicenter.com, and or you can, and to see this class and other classes, if you wish to review, it is thechaicenter.com/academy, and you can see a selection of classes that we have. Susan, I believe there's a happy birthday in your family. I believe it's a daughter. So happy birthday. May God bless us all, and bon chance.